Hello, everybody, and welcome to part, what is this, 11 of my... I'm going to stop doing parts because this is going to get confusing, especially when we do the other side of this route split. But this is chapter 10A, so there's, as we talked about before, a route split on the previous chapter, so we're going to be doing 10A. I believe there's either two or three chapters. I think there's two for either A or B. So this is A. This is again the one that I would recommend, and we'll be talking about the character Gonzalez, who appears in this chapter. The reason that I recommended this chapter, as opposed to the other one, this is the big reason. So we're going to be getting two new characters in this chapter. As far as the chapter is concerned, it's pretty straightforward. As you can see, your units start up here. There's some units here you're gonna have to get through. Some units in the middle you're gonna have to get through, and then basically just the boss. There are some pirate reinforcements that are going to be spawning from over here. They're not particularly complicated. There's also a ballista that you have to contend with. The ballista placement in the B chapters as well is way more annoying, so this one's not so bad. There's also going to be some reinforcements from these forts. But yeah, there's not too much to worry about here. As far as deployment is concerned, obviously our strong characters. We are going to be getting two new characters, Geese, who's just recruited by Roy, so don't worry about that, but also Gonzalez, who's recruited by Lilina. So I'm not using Lilina, but we are going to be bringing Lilina for those purposes. There's actually I forgot to sell last chapter with Shanna. There's a character later on, a Berserker, that you can also recruit Lilina. So I guess she has some affinity for brigand slash berserker type units. But yeah, there's, like I said, there's not a ton to talk about with this chapter. This guy does have a halberd, and then when we get here, you're gonna have to be pretty careful with this berserker. But I'm gonna do some preps, and then I'll start the chapter, and we're gonna start skipping around a little bit. Alright, so I finished my preps. I'm just going to talk a little bit about kind of where the characters should be at this point, I think, and who can be really useful for this. So our Rucker at this point is level 16. I do want to be promoting him, preferably by the end of this chapter. This boss, which I'll talk about more when we get there. I'm going to sound like a broken record, especially over the course of the next handful of chapters, but bosses, really, really nice for Rucker to kill him. This guy's got Nosferatu, doesn't have the best hit in the world, but can, like, be really hard to kill, because that, of course, heals when it deals damage. Our Lou is also very close to promotion as well, so we're going to be trying for that. And then, as I showed before, we did promote Lance last chapter. So we're going to just have Rucker try to take on the brunt of this. There is a lot of 2-range in here, which is pretty annoying. But perhaps we can have Lou kind of take on a little bit of that by going here. Although you have to be a little bit careful if our Lou is strong enough to one round, which he's not. These guys have a lot of health. So yeah, so we're going to basically use this, and then I'll have Lance kind of go this way. Although, as I said, you do have to be a bit careful of this halberd guy, so I'll probably stay out of his range. And start baiting out this ballista, which will be really nice, because then we don't have to get down with it when we get down there. So this is kind of the formation that I'm going to be using for this first little bit. We're going to clear out these units, and then I'll come back and talk about the middle part. Another thing I guess I'll just touch on a little bit here is kind of the characters that you should be bringing. Like, obviously I've talked about how we're training Rucker and Rucker, Lou, Lance, Allen. Obviously we're not going to be getting another Here's Nice Crest for a while, which is kind of unfortunate. But as you can see, I do have all 3 healers. I have Zealot. I have Shin as well. I'm still deploying Deke. This isn't Fire Emblem 7 where deployment slots are really like constrained, so you will have a lot of opportunity to just bring random units. Now, you can absolutely be training more units. We do have a whip right now, so perhaps training Fanny is a good idea, although that whip is really nice for Milady in a handful of chapters. But yeah, this is where like Zealot can be extremely nice. He can offer you good combat. Marcus can still be good at this point. Characters like Shin and Deke can still offer you really nice combat even without training. So whether you're training units or not, Fire Emblem 6 does offer a lot of different units that can be helpful. And obviously, as I said, we do have access to 3 different healers, so that can be really nice as well. Okay, so at this point we have dealt with most of the units here and baited out a lot of these ballista uses. I think you might have 2 left. It always kind of annoyed me that you can't check ballista uses in these games, because if you lose track, it can be really annoying. Thankfully, there's not too many ballistas in this game. I did mention the pirates over here. They're going to be spawning from here. Thankfully, it takes quite a bit of time for a pirate to spawn from there and get over to this house. So you do have some time to get there. This is Geese, who I'm going to be recruiting in a minute. We'll talk about him then. I did forget to mention this guy, who's a Killing Edge mercenary. Definitely be cognizant of these sort of units. Killing weapons in this game are really good. They have really good hit, and obviously a high crit. That's their whole point. So definitely be cognizant of that, especially when it comes to Rucker. Now, obviously, a Rucker would only take 27, which he got hit by this, so it would kill him now, but it wouldn't have killed him at the time. But still, be aware of those sorts of things. Enemy weapon uses are extremely important, but yeah, so I'm going to recruit Geese. We'll come back with Geese when I recruit him, and then I'll talk about the middle and kind of dealing with this guy. Alright, so we're going to recruit Geese. You just recruit Geese by talking to it with Roy. He does some weird stuff, like he'll go from here to the north, and he seemed like he was going toward Roy, but then he like double back to the middle. I don't know, Geese just does whatever he wants to do. So this is Geese, a pirate. Geese is probably one of the most like disappointing characters in this game. He's pretty bad. As you can see by his base stats, they're just not very high. Axes are also just really bad in this game. This Brave Axe, to be fair, has bad hit, but only has 77 hit with 9 skill, which isn't even that bad. I will say, the fact that he starts with a Brave Axe means that he can use a Brave Axe, which means that he's B with axes, which is actually pretty good. I believe this is another change because Geese does not come with the Brave Axe in the B route, which means I think he only starts like D. Geese does have some utility because there's some walls that you have to fight through, especially on the next chapter. And having 20 attack and actually being able to double walls because it's a brave weapon is actually pretty nice utility. But obviously that's, you know, pretty minor. We'll talk about that more when we get there. He's just really bad. One of the problems with Geese too is that he has all the problems of axe users, and we're going to be getting a character later on in this chapter named Gonzalez, who I'm also not the biggest fan of because he's an axe user, but his stats are going to be way higher. So we'll talk about him a little bit more when we get Gonzalez to kind of show the difference. But yeah, Geese is a character that I just don't think you should ever train. If you're going to train Geese, you may as well just train Gonzalez. It's unfortunate, but it's true. And they both become exactly the same class. They are different classes on unpromoted, but once they promote, they're both berserkers. So yeah, Geese is just unfortunately, he doesn't get hardware bonuses, and he's just really weak. So now I do want to talk a little bit about the middle as well. Obviously there are some units, we all know how to deal with units at this point. This guy is a bit scary. My recommendation would be to try to look and see if you can find anybody that can actually like take a crit potentially. So like our Lance, for example, has 11 defense because of weapon triangle, so it's 15. So if he crits, it would be 45. But we're also going to have Alan support. The thing about this is you're not going to have a unit a lot of the time that can actually take the crit. Now, obviously, when it comes to our Lance, because he has so much avoid with the high speed, and we're going to have a support, so he's got, what, 67 avoid. This guy's going to have like 10 hit, and that's not even counting weapon triangle. So we should be pretty safe, and you're going to have to probably rely on this a lot of the time, or like Rucker, for example, who has, 50 avoid. It's going to be a really low percent, but when it comes to units like this, just try to find somebody who can actually, like, take the crit, because as I talked about in the last chapter, some percentage of the time those crits are actually going to happen. So just be aware of that. There are a lot of berserkers during this portion of the game, and try to take those crits. So I'm probably going to use Lance to do this, and then I'll probably come back around where we recruit Gonzalez. Okay, so we just did a little bit of combat with this guy. As you can see with Lance here, based off supports, it means that this guy does have 0 hits, so it's really consistent for us. But like I said, you're not always going to have access to this, so this guy can be pretty troublesome. So I just want to show, that like if he did have a little bit of hit, let's say your Lance was unpromoted at this point, or let's say like Lance and Al died. A lot of what I'm talking about has a lot more to do with like Iron Man's and having to use weaker characters. If you're able to do what I'm doing, which is use the consistently good characters, stuff like this is pretty consistent, especially if you go for the supports. But just be aware that you won't always have, it won't always look like this exactly. But in this situation, Lance is going to handle this guy just fine. Okay, so this is the enemy phase here. We're going to be recruiting Gonzalez. Now, it is important to note that Gonzalez does have a Devil Axe, which can be a little bit scary, especially if you have some like counterattack potential. So one of the approaches you can take here is just getting somebody who, even with a backfire, can't actually kill, or just removing all the items from a unit, because that way it's pretty safe to recruit Gonzalez. He will go after this village, so just be aware that you do have to do this at least a little bit quickly, but we have the Lena right here and ready to recruit, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Hello, Gonzalez. So here's Gonzalez, and based off his stats, we can kind of compare 16 strength, 10 speed to Geese, already quite a bit higher. Only 1 less defense, but 1 additional resistance. He also has 43 HP. My man is a level 5 brigand with 43 HP. He gets hard mode bonuses, which is part of the reason that he's so strong. And yeah, these stats, the fact that this guy has 43 HP and 16 strength as a level 5 brigand is insane. I mentioned this before, but one of the reasons to do the A route as opposed to the B route is because Gonzalez on the B route comes level like 13 or maybe it's 11. It's something much higher, but he has exactly the same stats. So there's a lot more room to grow on the A route here. But yeah, these stats look incredible. Now, I will say, I don't actually think Gonzalez is that good, just because I think axes are extremely inconsistent. And that low skill, in normal Fire Emblem game like 7 and 8, especially the GBA games, these kind of stats would be insane to me, right? Even like, he'd have like 80s or something to hit. But in this game, it's closer to like 60s, maybe 70s. Now, going Ilya is a bit easier for him. If you go Sakai, it's really hard for him to hit anything. But obviously, you should be going Ilya. It's just, I don't know. I've always been disappointed with Gonzalez. As strong as he looks, and he does look strong. This doesn't mean that I would say don't train him, because past Rucker, I don't think there's really great uses for the Hero's Crest. I think he's pretty comparable to like Deke or like I think he's definitely stronger than Fur. So I still think that training him is a decent idea and pretty easy to do, but you're gonna have to be prepared that while you're training him, you're gonna miss a lot of axe hits, and once he's promoted, you're gonna miss a lot of axe hits. But he does get really good crit once he promotes because he does become a Berserker, which is a really good class. So I think I would probably recommend training him, but you don't have to. I don't a lot just because I hate watching Axis miss. He's also the only Brigand in the GBA games. So I don't know if that means anything to you, but he promotes to a Berserker. There are other Berserkers in the GBA games, but the only Brigand. And he's got purple pants, so, you know. But yeah, he is quite a strong character. So we've cleared up most of the chapter at this point. This guy has run off to heal. There are going to be reinforcements from these forts. But that's about it. This is also part of the reason that baiting out this Ballista early on is really important, because this is probably one-shot Lilina. Obviously, if you train Lilina, things are different, but that's really important. And yeah, I'm probably going to fight the reinforcements because I do want to get Rucker 220 by the end of this. Potentially by the boss and have him fight him. Oh yeah, we can also do this before I cut away. We'll promote our Lu. I don't know how much HP Lu's supposed to have at this point, but I feel like our Lu's really HP screwed. He's got 21 HP. That seems so low. There are going to be an opportunity to buy angelic robes later on, so low HP units aren't the worst thing in the world. And now having 25 HP and 8 defense, it means that he can take hits. Obviously, in Magic, Seal, and Speed, he's really strong, probably blessed in all those stats. So yeah, I'm going to clear up the rest of this stuff, and I probably won't come back until the boss. See you then. So I just wanted to highlight the last couple of batches of reinforcements we're going to have to deal with. The nice thing about these reinforcements is that you can get them in a really nice choke point here and use Rucker. One of the strategies that I use, whether I'm training Rucker or Fur, you can do this with like OJ and stuff too, just sword users, is the pirates. I think you saw earlier, Rucker was up here fighting the pirates, and kind of when the pirates are done, rescue dropping him down here as quickly as possible. Rucker is almost level 19, so my hope is that, as I said, we can get him to 20. I do think that promoting him by the end of this chapter, whether he's level 20 or not, is pretty important. Myrmidons aren't, I would say, and that's part of the reason, aren't as important perhaps to get to level 20 as some other units, because, they get a lot of speed and skill, but their other stats don't increase that highly, so one level usually isn't going to make the difference, but it's still nice to get to 20. Just for those purposes. So I think we're going to be able to do that, and then I'll come back for the boss. I just wanted to mention there is a decent opportunity to do some grinding here. It is nice to have some higher stats for the next chapter because it's going to be pretty useful. Okay, I know I've said I'm only going to come back to for the boss for the last, 10 times I've made a cut here, but Rucker did get to level 20. He got another level up. I think his last 3 level ups have all been nothing. I think our Rucker is a little bit, strength screwed. But honestly, the 10 defense is nice, his HP is good, and as long as he caps speed and skill, that's really all you're looking for. So we are going to be promoting Rucker. I just wanted to show off that. I'm not really sure where his strength is supposed to be, but I think it's supposed to be higher than 11. But like I said, that's okay. So we're going to finish off the last of these guys. Now, I am serious. The next time we're going to come back is going to be for the boss, and we're going to see how Rucker can handle the boss. Okay, so this boss, I touched on him a little bit to begin with, but as I said, this guy can be really annoying because Nosferatu is extremely strong, and if it hits you, it can just heal him back up to full. So you need to be a little bit careful here. I kind of wanted to show how Lance didn't handle him particularly well, but our Lance is just really good, and he has a support with Alan, so he actually does handle him pretty well. But Rucker also can deal with him really well. The killer weapons in this game are just so good, and this is like such a consistent kill. So we're gonna have Rucker probably just wait here, and then we'll have the boss attack Rucker. But I just wanted to highlight here, my point doesn't really work that well because Lance actually would have done this pretty well, but Rucker can kill the boss extremely quickly. As you can see, Rucker can literally one round a boss. Now, most of the time that's not double crit. Most of the time that's not super important, but there are going to be some chapters where just being able to kill the boss in a timely manner can and will be really useful. Depending on the strats you use, really depends on how useful it is, but yeah, Rucker is absolutely the ultimate boss killer in this game, and we're going to be seeing that a lot on the Isles. So I think we got everything. There is a sword reaver in this house. I just wanted to mention that. If you do plan on training Gonzalez, it can be extremely useful, because obviously Gonzalez can basically never hit sword users ever. So that was chapter 10A. Not a particularly complicated chapter. The next chapter, for at least the A side of the route split, is actually my favorite in the entire game. So I'm excited to talk about that. But yeah, I'll see you then. Thanks for watching.